Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome back to the First Generation Aggies podcast, where we bring first generation students and alumni stories and resources to you. We're your hosts, Abel and Isaac, and today we're here with Diana Reyna, who is a first generation junior Aggie who started her own small dessert business here in College Station from scratch and watched it grow into a 7,000 following. So, Diana, how are you today?
I'm good. I just came back from surviving the last week with the winter storm. But I'm back at home settling and stuff and talking to you guys. So I'm doing really good.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy week, to say the least, last week. Um, but I think everyone's pulling out strong. Glad to have everything behind us and everything. So that's awesome to hear. So real quick, before we get into the actual interview, we like to ask all of our guests a quick icebreaker question. And the question is, if you could have dinner with any famous person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I can like try to sit here and think about like celebrities, but I don't know. It's almost like they don't really like cause much attention to me right now because in the pandemic, there's a ton of people that I want to see that like I haven't been able to see. So one of those people is she's a journalism professor at A&M, and her name is Angelique Gammon. Oh my gosh, she has been like my mom like since I've been in College Station. And she's super great. I literally have no idea how she found me, but she did, and she took me under her wing like immediately. And I had no idea who she was, but she has saved my butt so many different times on so many different occasions when I didn't know like who to ask. But she's like super high risk, but I haven't been able to see her in like a year and a half maybe, but I would kill to see her again. Like some dinner. We had a grilled cheese one time, so that's kind of like our thing together. So a grilled cheese with Angelique, that would be everything right now.
Yeah, you said she's a professor, communication professor?
She's a journalism professor.
Journalism professor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She is super cool. If you're a journalism like major, find her, take her class. She's amazing.
Definitely. Do you know what that class is by any chance for our viewers?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I should know this and I don't. But if you look her up on like Rate My Professor, it will be there.
So now let's get into about Diana. So you're a first generation college student. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey getting to A&M and why you chose A&M?
So, like a lot of first generation students, my main priority going into like a college was something that I could afford that would like also look really good like once I had the degree like in my hand and I was graduated. And I didn't know anything about A&M until I started applying for colleges, and that's when I was like, oh, I didn't even know College Station was a town. And then I started looking into it, and then they gave me like scholarships being like a first generation, and they're really good at that. They're really good at like bringing in first generation students and being like, you know what, we'll help you and like guide you along financially. And so that's kind of how they got me in. Once I was like more like involved into the school is when I was like, you know what, I kind of like the atmosphere that's in here and the energy, and everybody is very friendly. You can leave your stuff out and no one's gonna take it because Aggie honor code, right?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, that's how they reeled me in. That's how they got me.
Awesome. So now let's talk a little bit more about your business. What is it called and what is it exactly?
So I run a business called Pastelitos. It is fully specialized, like I fully specialize in making cheesecakes. And it started off as kind of like, it started off as a fundraiser because I had to pay for like my next year in college. Just because like sometimes your financial aid letter gets kind of like messed up or it changes as you go in through other semesters. And I was like, no, pues, I don't know what to do. Like I had like one like good skill that I knew how to like use, and knew that I could like make something out of it. And so I sold one cheesecake. And then one person told another person, and then everything started, it kind of started to like uh, spread within a small community of my friends and family. And that's when they were like, well, maybe you could like do something a little bit more. But me being 19, I was like, what's more? Like what
Yeah.
what else could I possibly do?
And this was your first job, correct?
Yeah, this I yes. I had helped out in my dad's shop for a little bit, but it was never just like I would just kind of like go and he'd be like, "Mija, tráeme un like bring me a ranch." And I'd be like, "Okay." But like job like where I would like bring in some income and like have money to like pay for stuff that I needed was something that I had ended up making.
For sure, for sure. And is this true? They in our pre-interview you said you maxed out at 200 orders a week at one point. Is that true? Can you tell us about that week a little bit?
Yes, I it was several weeks. It was several weeks in College Station. Because when I first posted about it on like Aggie Twitter, you know, like I would it word made its way into like people from A&M, people in College Station. And so when I first posted about it and everybody was being like, "Oh, this is the best cheesecake I've ever had." Everybody else was like, "Best cheesecake? What are you what are you talking about?" And so it was like the demand of everybody talking about it that made them like want to drop whatever they were doing and like drive if we were having like up for grabs, or they would like fill out my order forms in less than 30 seconds, uh, like every day or every other day, just because people were talking about it. And word like that works so much better than advertisement or like marketing. Word of mouth.
For sure, word of mouth, definitely.
So I wanted to ask you about your business journey and what it was like for you at the beginning, trying to, like you said, just trying to get a little bit of word of mouth and a little bit of marketing out there about your new business that you just started.
So a lot of that it was a little bit humiliating at first, because when people would come and like order a cheesecake and we would meet somewhere to like do a little trade-off or whatever, I'd have to stand there and I'd be like, "Hey, like listen, I'm a student. Like I can't go out and find a job right now because I just need like money as soon as I can get it so I can go back to my semester." And I would have to be like, "It helps so much for you to like put what you like really really think about this and put it out on like Twitter, or put it out on Facebook, or wherever it is that you want to post about it. But it would really really help me if you were to tell like people who trust you, and like have them like bring them my way, you know, like kind of like direct them to me if they need a cheesecake or if they just want something like sweet." And so after I like once I started like asking and people started doing it, I had to like, or I didn't have to ask anymore, because they would just be like, "Oh my gosh, everybody's posting about it, so like I want to post about it too." And so that's how that worked. You kind of have to do like little weird tedious things in the beginning, but in the end it ends up like working out really really well. It's still going right now. People will post without me even asking, and it's really good.
And that's where you said you got your first, I guess, big break when it came to like a little bit of publicity was through Aggie Twitter, right?
It started off with like one post, and I definitely tried to like sob story my way a little bit, and I was like, "Listen, I'm a first generation college student. Like I gotta go to college, and my parents want to be proud of me and stuff." And you know, you did the whole story, and it was something that people could relate to, because everybody, I think, you know, supporting themselves through college has been through like that weird moment where they're like, "Oh, like hell, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for my next semester." Um, and so I think that's what spoke with a lot of people, or kind of like resonated with them, and they were like, "You know what, like, uh, or even if like they hadn't gone through something like that, they were probably thinking like, okay, well maybe one day I will be in those shoes and I would want someone to help me." And so I feel like having such like a story that resonated so well with people, is definitely what got the ball rolling.
Whenever you did have a little bit of interaction, was it always positive? Did you ever have any sort of like backlash from any sort of Twitter interactions? Because I know there's some people on Twitter who are just looking to, I guess, bash on anyone who's has a little bit of success.
Yeah, I had a couple of people. Yeah, there was a couple of occasions where something on Twitter had happened, and you know what? When I was first starting and I was like 19, I was very much like, "Well, why is everybody like against me? Why is everybody attacking me?" But it was the way that I was perceiving it as someone who like they were probably seeing it as something like way, way different. They were probably just like, oh, well, she's charging way too much for the cheesecakes. Or I posted one time that I had bought a $90 espresso machine because I wanted to make coffee in my house. And it turned into like this, oh, well, she's using our money and doing this, from one person. And I was a little offended at first, but now I think back and I laugh at it and I'm like, pues, like I need my coffee. If you want the cheesecakes, I gotta be energized or something, but it's just a matter of like the way that you look at it and the way that you like see it. I feel like when I was younger, or literally like a year ago, there was a lot of growing this year, but literally like a year ago, I would like see something or get like really, really like up in arms about something. And I would be like, well, why are they thinking this? And why are they doing this? And how come, people don't like me? Because I've always been a big, big people pleaser. But growing up, you kind of like, you got to step back and be like, they're looking at it in completely like other different eyes. And it's not my job to like make them feel good or make them feel better about it, even if I can explain the entire world to them and, make them think that, actually I'm right. You can't do that. There have been a lot of different occasions. If you know about it, you know about it, but I don't think I regret anything. I feel like it was definitely like a growing experience for me. And they make funny stories in the future. So yeah.
Yeah, and also I guess being a part of Aggie Twitter and getting a little bit of publicity, and I guess going viral a little bit through Aggie Twitter as well. It has more people who I guess come back and want to be like checking up on you, and I guess that's how I started seeing your journey. Whenever you started getting a little bit more, I guess the right way would be professional about the way you wanted to run your business, and I saw that you started even going to bakeries, and it looked like you were like using their kitchens and all that. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, so actually, just to like bring to everybody's knowledge, there are, when you think about like taco trucks or like food trucks or whatever, I used to think about it as in like, oh, they just cook literally everything that they need to cook inside that little truck, and that's how they make the food. As it turns out, there are commissary kitchens. There's literally like a big, massive kitchen in Bryan, and it has everything that like a licensed kitchen should have. So there's like 4 different ovens, 2 industrial sized mixers, like gigantic stainless steel tables. And I didn't know about that at all. So when I was baking out of my apartment, I was like, well, I can't go and buy like a hole in the wall place and build my own bakery. Like I got to be able to do it out of my apartment. But, then we like did some looking and we did some researching, and there was a place in Bryan called Renegade, and it's a shared kitchen. And so when I was putting together all the business paperwork and stuff, that's when I found it. And that's when I kind of moved from making probably like $100 cheesecakes in a month to like 100 cheesecakes, 200 cheesecakes per week.
Wow.
And how about whenever you started hiring employees? Was that something that you took I'm sure you took a lot of consideration who you were going to hire to be a part of your business like that?
Yeah, so my first 2 hires, one of them was a freshman who I was just asking for like some hands, and I had put it out on Pastelitos, and I was like shooting my shot to whoever. And he had responded to me and he was like, well, what do you need? And I was like, well, bare minimum, I think you need like a food certificate, like food handler's license. And like the moment that I said that, he went out and he went and got like his food handler's license, and he sent it back to me, and he was like, I got it. And I was like, okay, you're hired. That was impressive. Like, cool. And it was just like, it was, I didn't have like a whole hiring process, and I didn't know like who I needed to bring in. So my second hire was a friend that I've had since like the moment that I had gotten in, like accepted to A&M. And both of them were there when we were making like 200 cheesecakes a week. And I think when the pandemic happened, or it was like a couple of months like before the pandemic happened, there was just kind of like a period where we didn't really have a lot of work. And so I was like, okay, we can step back from the bakery for a little bit. And then when the next year came around and the big pandemic happened, that's when we kind of like switched gears and we found like different people. But I definitely put a lot of thought into bringing in like people with really good energy into the bakery, because I knew that if the chemistry was off, or like if we came into the bakery and it was just like straight silence, like the cheesecakes were not going to be made nicely and the energy was just going to be weird. And I'm very much like if there's silence, or if there's just like uncomfortable silence, then my mood will drop. And you don't want the main baker's mood to drop because I'm making the cheesecakes. So I always brought in people who made me laugh, people who made me feel at home, you know, people who had my humor. And yeah, there has never been a boring day in the bakery ever in the history of Pastelitos.
Awesome. So one thing I wanted to ask is, you created this business, like unintentionally almost, and it just kind of flourished really big. So what advice would you give to someone else who wants to maybe start their own other type of business or something like that? What would they have to overcome? What skills would they need? And, stuff along those lines.
First of all, I definitely want to say that if you want to start anything, start it right now. Like, don't even look into the paperwork. You're going to overwhelm yourself. Like, if you have an idea and you want to just like do it and you're like, damn, that's a good idea, but there's just so much that has to go into it. Stop. Don't. I was baking out of my apartment. That's where I started. And if you just keep looking at like what you have to do, like what you have to prepare, just start small, start local. Like if you want to do something, be like, you want to make sure you're making quality food. If you want to go into the food business, make a plate for your tios and tias, like your cousins. Go and ask them, like, what do you think about this? Like, give me your feedback. And then once you start it and you got kind of like people talking, that's when you can be like, okay, I kind of like where this is going. I like how this makes me feel. And it's something that I want to continue doing. That's when you can go into the paperwork and you can go into like what else has to be done. And that's when you can be like, okay, well, you know what, like what I want to do right now is worth all of the like paperwork in the courts and going and getting a DBA and making an LLC, lo que quieras. That's when you realize, okay, like this is worth it. Like it'll be okay. But definitely if you want to go into the food business, you are handling people's food. Like you definitely want to be careful before you even like go forward and sell it to strangers. Get your food handler's license, get your food managers, go to your local health department and ask them what you need. Kind of like resources, or if they have like a local shared kitchen that you can go to, you can rent it for like a couple of hours, make a big plate and hacer like vendida a little bit for like a day or something. Make sure you do your taxes, everyone. Get your EIN number. That's important. Very, very important. Yeah, honestly, the best, probably most important business like advice that I can give you is just like, don't sit there and be like, it's too much and I'm overwhelming myself and I can't do it. Just throw that in the back of your head, hide it so far away that you can't even like think about it. Don't think about the paperwork. Just build the passion slowly, and that's when you can like look into the future and be like, you know what, I really like this and I want to keep doing it forever, so I'm going to do the thousands of paperworks that I have to do.
For sure. And you mentioned future, so what's the future of El Pastelitos look like?
Oh my gosh. My parents really want, my dad has always wanted to open up a panaderia, like a little place where they sell sweetbread or whatever. And my little sister, who mind you is 13, really wants to make like drinks, like refreshers, kind of like tea, boba, coffee vibes.
Yeah.
And so I've sat and talked with my parents and been like, what if we were to do like a little coffee shop, stuff like that. And so that's up in the air, that's just a thought. My sister is 13, she doesn't know what she wants. But I think in the near future, once business gets like a little bit better, I've always wanted to save up and do like a Pastelito scholarship, because given the nature of Pastelitos and how we like brought it up, because I started it because I needed money, I've always wanted to be like, okay, well, I got the money from my college, now I want to help you guys. And so that's just something that's always been in the back of my head, kind of like not on the back burner, but once the pandemic came and Pastelitos suffered just like any other, business that's trying to make it through the pandemic right now. But that's like the near future and then far future.
So you also mentioned hosting a workshop to share what you learned about starting a business. Where are you on that? And would you like to discuss that?
It was an idea that was brought up like a week ago, probably. And during my pre-interview, Alexandra had asked me, and she was like, "Oh, what are your thoughts on like maybe passing on the knowledge?" And I was like, "That's crazy," because I literally had a dream about it the other day. And it's almost like things kind of like worked out in time. So while I had 12 hours worth of no electricity at my house, I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I feel like I don't really like the idea of selling like knowledge. So I may just open up like a gigantic Zoom and being like, "Hey, I'm about to spill everything that I know about like business." Obviously, it'll be a lot like more organized. But like I wish that I had someone to like tell me like, "Oh, you're gonna make a ton of mistakes." I feel like a lot of people don't think about it, or whenever they think about like, "Oh, you're a student and you run a business." Yes, and that leaves a lot of room for error. So much room for error. Like there's so many mistakes that I made that I wish like someone would have told me not to do. Um, but I feel like it would be so much easier like if I wanted to be motivational, I wouldn't just sit here and be like, "Oh, like do this and this and this, and if you do everything like perfectly in correct chronological order, you'll be fine and your business will like thrive." Because no one's gonna do that, you know what I mean? So if I'm able to sit here and be like, "I made these mistakes, you're probably gonna make these mistakes as well, but here's how you're gonna get out of that, and here's how you can fix that." I
Yeah.
feel like it would be a lot more motivating to people who want to make or start small businesses.
For sure, yeah, I definitely think sometimes our failures are our biggest life lessons. I think that's what I feel like I learned from the most as well. So that would definitely be great insight. I think that you could offer and would be great to hear.
Okay, so what would you say about the Aggie network, and how do you feel that's helped you in growing your own business?
I definitely think that the Aggie Network had a lot to do with how fast my business grew. Um, people will hear the word like Aggie, or they'll hear someone say howdy, and all of a sudden every Aggie in the room will turn around and be like, "Where?" Or you'll see like an Aggie ring and you'll instantly recognize it because it's something that's so like, I guess the experiences that you have at A&M kind of like bring everyone together, and you're able to talk to someone who has even like the tiniest little piece of Aggie gear on the street and be like, "Hey, I went there, like we went to football games and we had all these traditions and stuff." And so I definitely think that there's a big sense of like togetherness, because the classes are hard, and the town is so small, so everybody kind of knows everyone, and you feel like a family. And you definitely like find your clique once you're at A&M. So I feel like even despite all of like the different cliques that you find at A&M, or like even if you're from like a completely different like friend group, you're still able to like go back to your hometown and then see someone in like an A&M sweatshirt and be like, you know?
Yeah.
And so even then, like that kind of like translates into social media and stuff. So whenever I was like, I'm a first generation Aggie, old Ags from like 84, like 90, back in the day, they were like, "Wow, like I remember when I was in college and it was really hard." Like, and it's only gotten more expensive as time goes on. And so even if they can't like help financially, they'll like retweet, they'll retweet, or like they'll send like a like or a share. And honestly, it just goes from there. A&M is kind of crazy. It was a little scary at first, but it grows fast.
Yeah, and I guess being on or seeing your journey through Twitter and following you, I was able to see even how after you went through some of the struggles that you went through, inspired a bunch of other girls to start their own businesses that were also Aggies. And I guess I honestly, I don't know if maybe this is going too far, but I'd say that they even look up to you and see you almost as like the first Aggie woman who did that and was like so successful and viral. So I guess, do you have any words of advice you'd like to give anybody who may be starting their business?
Yeah. So I definitely, I don't know, or well, I never want to put myself on a pedestal that's like high enough for me to ever be like, "Oh, there's people that look up to me." Like if an individual like comes up to me and they're like, "Oh, you inspired me to do this," I'm always like, that's great. Like, I'm glad that I was able to do that to you and like kind of be like a little catalyst, because that's sometimes like all that people need. Because when they saw that I started in my apartment and like my cheesecakes used to be so ugly, I know that they saw that and they were like, wow, she is confident. That I like that. You know, and if I was able to like spark something so small, I'm just glad that I'm like here to help. And so many people have like reached out to me like via Pastelitos DMs and been like, you know what, like I want to start this like thing, but I don't really know like where to go from there. And I'm like, start, just go, like jump off of the ledge and start, and like you'll learn as you go. And so, you know, I remember seeing everybody who was like also saying things like, you know what, I have to go and, you know, pay my tuition. And there's a girl at A&M, caked up by Aaliyah, and her name is Aaliyah. She's a mechanical engineering student, I want to say. And I've heard her story before. That girl takes so many classes. She's engineering, and she still finds a way to like, you know, pay her stuff through making tres leches, and it's so good. She went and gave me one. We kind of like traded off, but she gave me one of her cakes, and they were so delicious. And I definitely, whenever like someone comes up to me with their story and they're like, I just, you know, I know how to make one thing, and they're like, oh, well, do you think maybe like if I sell tortillas de harina at College Station, like would they sell? And of course I gotta be like, girl, these students are homesick. Yes, sell the tortilla. And it makes me really happy. And again, like I never want to be like, oh, these people are looking up to me. But whenever someone does come up to me like with their story and they're like, I just need advice, I will pour out my heart and soul to them, because I remember how lost I was, and it is not it. But it makes me so happy. I remember like the group of people that like made small businesses around the same time that I did. And a lot of them are still in business, like Quality Creations. She makes little crochet art, and Alea. And then, oh my God, there's the business owner's name is Carly, but she makes strawberry dip, like strawberries. She's like a year off from me, I think, but still around the same time. And I love the little era of women that started everything. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's awesome to hear. Just seeing you as a pioneer for starting businesses and like that here at A&M is really, really awesome. So as we approach the end of our interview, we have a quick question that we like to ask all of our guests, which is, what is your favorite quote or quote that you try to live by?
I definitely maybe like don't have a direct quote, but I always try to live by understanding, or I like to like step back from the way that I'm perceiving something, and look at it like in a way that like the person experiencing or seeing or saying, you know, however they're like seeing it. And that's what you have to do a lot of the times, like in business, because you know, sometimes you have to step back as a business owner and like look at your customer base and be like, okay, well, you know, it's a little bit slow. What are they seeing right now? What are they like looking at? How are they perceiving me? And even then, with the people that you're working with, you know, there are some times that like you're trying to network with people and like the vibe is just off. And so sometimes I have to step back and be like, okay, well, they don't know my whole story. They just know that I'm a 20-year-old that bakes cheesecakes. Like that's how I pay my tuition. And so you kind of like have to understand and like work with what you think, never making assumptions, but kind of like working with what you think will like make whatever better. And so I feel like stepping back and trying to understand is a lot better than like going out and being like, well, this is how I think that you're seeing me. You know what I mean? And it leaves a lot of room for hostility. And that's never a good thing. Not in business, not with friends, not with anything like that. So definitely just understanding.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Diana. It's very good advice that we have for all of our first generation students who are possibly even looking into starting their own business. You heard it here. Just go out and do the first step. That's all you got to worry about. Don't worry about the planning. Don't worry about the rest. I could tell you from our experience too, creating this podcast, there's a bunch of moving parts, but we started it and then now we're in episode 9. So I hope that we all here serve as a little bit of motivation for you guys as well. And also, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Northwest Drivetrain and Services, located in Houston and Conroe, Texas. They offer a wide variety of semi-truck parts and services such as drive shaft repairs and transmission and differential rebuilds. So if you or someone you know owns a big rig, be sure to tell them to check out Northwest Drivetrain and Services. And last but not least, don't forget to wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance, and Giga Maggies.